It's the 21st of uh, February 2024. You're welcome back to the channel. There was a lot of rain overnight, although it's a bright day here in rural Ireland today. Kingscourt migrant meeting took place at 8:30 p.m. on the 19th of February 2024 in Kingscourt Community Centre. It was organised by a chap. He'd be in his 30s, and he just felt that he'd like to do something, and he was very concerned. I am convinced from examining the whole situation, he is genuine, because I've always said you want to watch meetings that there isn't a hidden agenda, somebody trying to get in first and have the meeting, get control of the whole meeting and all, and then act the maggot after that and be for the opposition. That is not the case with this man. I am convinced of that. It was held in the community centre, which required the consent of local councillor Clifford Kelly, who is a Fianna Fáil councillor for the Bailieborough area, and he's the long serving councillor for Kingscourt. He's a member of a long-standing family of the Kellys in Kingscourt. So very affable type of man. Not always I would agree with him, but a very turns out real well and all that. And he's well got, as to say, in all circles. Now, in any event, he was asked by the organiser. We'll call the organiser Glenn. I'll not say any more than that. I don't like to name people. We'll not call him Glenn, and he is Glenn. That's his name. Leave it at that. He's a local chap. But he asked Mr. Kelly and Mr. Paddy MacDonald of Sinn Féin to attend. Now, what I didn't get a chance to ask him yet was, did he ask anyone else? Who else was invited? But I presume Sinn Féin would consider Paddy MacDonald as a senior councillor for County Cavan. He's a senior councillor as their representative there. There was nobody representing Fine Gael, and so we had Fianna Fáil and Sinn Féin represented, and there was nobody representing Fine Gael. I won't build anything into that either. The room was a bit small. I understand Mr. Kelly felt there'd be about 70 people in attendance. In fact, there were a lot of people standing outside the door. I would have got them in. The man running it, Glenn, the MC, sure, he maybe has no experience of these things, and that's okay. I've attended over must be 200 of these type of meetings in my time, and I learned a thing or two. So in any event, the migrant situation was discussed big time. One lady there said that there can't get places for people homeless in Dublin while they bring in all these people. And this is obviously the case. Now, there were 3 questions were asked and that I was able to help to answer with. Now, Mr. Kelly, Councillor Kelly and MacDonald, they showed that they weren't absolutely sure who was sending in all these migrants. And they also said that they couldn't get information from the government, Roderick O'Gorman's office or anybody else, that Cavan County Council is in the dark. And that in one case that they were sending migrants down to Castletara and Cavan County Council knew nothing about it. So it was quite obvious that these 2 councillors were saying they had no power. Now, you might expect me to condemn them for that. I think it'd be better off if we said they were honest about it. They told us the facts. This is the case. Well, I was able to tell the meeting that this is pushed in from the European Union. Ursula von der Leyen and all these. The migrants are arriving by their thousands into southern Europe. There's nothing they can do to stop them. Well, I believe there is, but the EU feels they can't stop them. The Irish government's contribution was to send the Navy down to the Mediterranean to help bring them across. And we're in a very woke, cultural Marxist, left-wing, all this society. This is the American Democratic Party at play. And don't forget, Ireland gave 100 million to the Hillary Clinton Foundation and has given 300 billion to the American bond market. Some of that, of course, is private money. That's all right. We don't have to go there. But in any event, the thing about it is that was the first thing I was able to clarify. So I think everyone felt I was right on that. Now, of course, if anybody feels I'm wrong, they can get on to me underneath here and I'll correct it, because that's the policy of this channel. The second thing Clifford Kelly said, Councillor, was that someone asked a question about change of use of premises. Now, because of my campaigning on the renewable energy stuff and the pylons, I'm quite well read in the SEA directive, the EIA directive in Europe, and the Irish Planning and Development Act. I spent hours and hours of time reading it, and there is a section in our regulation, it's the same thing, under the Planning and Development Act, made about 2018. It'd take me an hour to look that up. There is that section which says that you don't need a change of use planning application for migrants coming in to a premises. Now, again, I'll have to study it more. Definitely not for a hotel or a place already keeping people, but if it's maybe say a sawmill, it might be somewhat different. I'll not go there with that, but he was right on that. The man was telling it right, and he probably had got that checked with the council in Cavan, and that would be correct. So far, so good. So in any event, those are the things. I didn't want to hog the meeting. I was very careful because I felt that if I went in and started hogging the meeting, I'd be abusing the position of the MC, and I'd also be maybe being seen as a bit of a pushy fella and all that. So I was quite measured. I did not attack any of the two politicians present. I had no grounds to. And there were a good lot of people there, people who vote for Sinn Féin, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael. An awful lot of businesses in the town and in the surrounding areas did not go to the meeting because they felt they'd lose business. Now, if you understand that thinking, what they would say is there's 40%, let's say, of the people totally opposed to illegal migration into Ireland. There's probably 30% who would want more, and there's that middle bit which is don't care a damn but are capable of being swung. And so 30% of their business, if 30% of their customers turned against them, that's a big loss in revenue. So it's a hot potato. And because of that, businesses didn't take part as a rule. But there were a few publicans there. Yes, there were a few people there. But I'm just giving the point. Now, some people say they're cowardly for that. I won't go that far. I won't go that far. People have to earn a living, and that's all right. And you see, if you think of my position in life, I have organised my life in such a way that for most, the first of it, I couldn't open my mouth at all. I had to shut up. But I could study and I could learn. And then I come into the position I'm in now, where I can talk freely without anyone getting at me. Really, I don't think anyone can get at me unless they start attacking my bank account or whatever. And I have that well dispersed as well. So that's the situation there. Now, we'll see what else was discussed. Oh yeah. Well, Mr. Kelly did make the point. We have no bank in the town of Kingscourt, and we will be minorities in our own country within a few years. That is exactly my appraisal of this situation. We will be minorities in the country in a few years. So I think, you have to hand it to me. I was way ahead of time on this. It's just that people were slower catching on to what exactly is happening. And I would suggest to you all, in the case of the pylons and all this renewable energy and electric cars, I have been right. I mightn't be 100% right everywhere, but I have been right in this and proven to be right. The difficulty with this, unlike, we'll say, same-sex marriage, which doesn't bother, we're not here, and like that, or unless something else, you cannot reverse this process. If you wanted to change the law on marriage, on divorce, on anything, I'm not saying you would, but if you did, if you want to change on anything, you can do it in future years. You see, but you can't change this because the people are already in. They're already in. It's the same as the Native Americans in America could not reverse the settling of their own land by European and other settlers. They couldn't do it now because it's gone too far. What would you do with them? You couldn't do it. You can't reverse this process. And that is why there was mention of the World Economic Forum there. There was which I believe they are conniving for this. They're meeting in Davos, and what are they at? Now, one man stood up, a tin chap, I won't mention his name and embarrass anyone. I'd like to meet him again. The problem was, I tried to let people, he was for the migrants, and he had a paper in his hand, and I tried to let him speak. But you see, we didn't know how long it was for. And this was pure inexperience by the MC. You need to make sure, if people are allowed to make a presentation, that it is timed, that it's agreed before to the timing. You cannot have someone stand up and talk for an hour at a meeting. So what happened with this fella, he was a kind of and he had a big list of stuff, probably very legalistic material. But it looked to me he was going to go on for 20 to a half an hour. And none of them there were able for that. And they shouted him down and they booed him. And the one thing I asked him was, how many? How many do you want in? And I was sitting with my back to, let's say, down the river, down the wood, and I was facing up to the town, the Hamble Alley and Max filling station up that way, at the lower Main Street. So you can imagine I was like this, and so that person came in and spoke, and then he had to go, and it was unseemly. And this is the point about stuff like windmills and pylons and migrants. It divides communities. The normal thing where people can trust a politician and vote for various issues and that is stopped. It's a feature of politics that this could upend the whole political structure in this country, but I'm only saying that. So you see the way you have the people there turning on one person who dissents on this opinion. Now, there was another man down on the right. I knew some of these. One girl was a Sinn Féin candidate. But I would have advised the MC again, and maybe I'll be meeting him, so I'll tell him, you announce who they are. Who are you? I'm Val Martin. I'm the European Platform Against Wind Farms, and I'm a campaigner on this, on the migration, and I have a YouTube channel, and I'm from out the road. Okay, that's what I should have done. Now, that wasn't any villainy. That was this chap. He learned a bit. It won't be long till he's well able to handle this stuff. But you see, the first run is not easy to get right. Right. So this other man was seen to be forward. He said, we went all over the world, and now we were objecting to people coming here. Well, we brought 170,000 last year. 170,000. Then over on the left, there was a man down at the back, and I don't know, he was in blue clothes. I don't know what he was saying. I couldn't quite get it there. But again, what I would say to people and what I will offer is, and maybe this will happen, that those who have who want this or have a different opinion, to meet a small committee or meet a small people, and let's hear you. Now, do not expect me, a busy man, to appear there at 8 o'clock at night and still be there at 1:30 listening to you. You can't do that. On the other hand, I find there are a certain amount you have to get in. Is it legal points? Is it a convention? What is it? And also, if these people come in to talk or they want to talk with me, be prepared for me to ask a question. And if you don't know the answer, it does not mean I think any the least of you. You need to go off and get that checked, because it's not easy for us to check everything, not easy for me to check every bit of law. Do you understand what I'm saying, folks? So I hope that makes it clear. Now, I think a committee may be formed. I got a bit of a vibe I might be invited. Now, I wasn't invited to this meeting. I make no issue of that. I make no issue of it. As far as I'm concerned, the only minor criticism is that it should have been in the bigger hall, but there's a bigger hall attached to the community centre. But then it was a cosy spot, it was well lit, and it was easier here. I would have packed all the people at the door. I could have got them in somewhere, even if they had to sit on the floor. You know what I mean? Like I'd have organised that a bit better. But that's all a minor criticism. I cannot, in fairness, criticise the two politicians who came and did enlighten us, particularly that they are powerless, that they can't get information from Dublin. So that's fair. Now we know where we stand, and we know where the thing is. So I think I may be having some input into whatever committee is formed, and the best of luck to them all. I hope I've reported on that. People may say, oh, you're gone a bit soft in the head and all that. We got to work with everybody. And I know there are a good few Sinn Féin dyed-in-the-wool supporters who are not content. And you see the way I hit that in my videos, what Sinn Féin is doing. See the way I was on the ball there. So there is a lot of problems there. Essentially, folks, our country future is being threatened, and we are losing control for our children and our grandchildren and our great grandchildren. And just as in 1918, the people of the whole Ireland of Ireland, for better or for worse, voted 73%, 73% in favour of Arthur Griffith's campaign, Michael Collins's campaign, and dare I say even De Valera's campaign, and indeed James Connolly and all of them. When they knew the hassle was on, the Great War was over, there had been a rising, they had executed the leaders of the 1916 rising, which was a big mistake in my view. The chips was down. There was a vote taken under British jurisdiction. I had copies of the electoral register from my area, and that vote was honest and straight. The vote was 73% in favour of the Irish position, in favour of De Valera, Collins, and Griffith, and those people. And in Cavan, they elected Arthur Griffith, I think, in County Cavan. They elected Arthur Griffith in County Cavan. That's my understanding. And Collins was elected down in the south, and Sean McKeown in Longford, and all of that. So, and he was Fine Gael, don't forget. So the point I'm making, we still have the descendants of the people who voted that day in 1918. They're still our friends and our neighbours, and I think they're beginning to wake up and they realise that the electoral process that was handed to us by the British did contain a lot of hardship. The people who voted were the subject of landlords and evictions and hangings and all that, but they still had the right to win and express their will in the ballot box, and they did. And we know the result, and if you took the northern counties out of it, the vote was probably nearly 90%. Understand? So if you took what's the present republic, the vote was 90%. That doesn't mean that the unionist people were any the worse thought of by me or anybody else. It just is that there was a feeling among the people that we'd like to rule ourselves. And I have to admit to being an Irish nationalist. I can't help it, that's the way I am, but it's a very, very tolerant form of Irish nationalism. Now, the thing about it is, this is being pushed over. How can some anonymous person in the European Union decide to pick a bunch of people from anywhere, not all Ukraine, and that was emphasised, to pick a bunch of people and to send them to Ireland and distribute them around in their thousands, in 170,000 a year? That is not democracy. That is not democracy. And I have my own views that I'll express later on that. So folks, this is only the start. My compliments to the MC and the chairman of that meeting, who did a courageous thing, and if he keeps the way he's going, he'll get plenty of our support and advice and information on procedure, not on where to go or what's right or wrong, but how to do the procedures of all of that. It was a good meeting. I enjoyed it, and it was good, and it was very, very useful. 300 attended about. The vote in Kingscourt would be about 2,000. So that's 300. I'd say that you'd have another 200 who would feel the same. So that's 500. It's not enough to elect a councillor, but there would be another maybe 500 who would be sitting on the fence, and there's probably 800 who feel that we, people like me, are wrong ones, and we never consent to anything, and everything the government does is considered wrong by me. That is not the case. That is not the case. Now, one of the things that happened, I met a person since that, a person that I know well, I'd say no more, and the first question I was asked was were you talking about burning down hotels? Did you talk about burning down hotels? And that'll show you the precondition, the way these people think, that ordinary people cannot have a meeting to discuss a problem without being accused of being arsonists and terrorists and everything else. If hotels are burned down, we pay a Garda Síochána to enforce and investigate the law. That's their job. That's their job. It's not my job to do that. That's their job. They're paid a lot to do that. And that was my answer to that person. Another lady made the point about some of these people could have mental health issues, to have health issues. They're coming here for just medical treatment to get the same dole and get the same as everybody else. You all know the story by now. I'm under 20 minutes, folks. That's my account of the Kingscourt meeting, and it's upwards and onwards. And we will have to allow a good debate among our people and keep it within the confines of the subject. I won't get too political. I won't try to push it political uh, with regard to the local scene. Good old town, Kingscourt, and hopefully we will do what's right. Thank you.